Have you ever noticed how some people stay in your mind long after they're gone? You stop hearing from them, you stop seeing them, and yet, somehow their presence lingers. You think about the conversations, the energy, the way they made you feel. Now imagine becoming that kind of person to her. Imagine walking away from a moment together, and instead of forgetting you, she keeps replaying your presence in her mind. Not because you begged for attention, not because you tried too hard, but because something about you felt different, calm, grounded, difficult to replace. In this video, we're going to break down 5 psychological shifts rooted in Stoicism that make a woman miss you deeply, even when you're not around. And the strange part is, none of them involve manipulation, chasing, or pretending to be someone you're not. In fact, the more emotionally dependent a man becomes, the less unforgettable he usually is. That's the paradox most men never understand. Before we dive in, subscribe to Modern Stoic Mind for more insights on attraction, emotional mastery, and the psychology behind human connection. Now let's start with the first principle, emotional detachment. And no, this doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. It means learning how to stop needing constant validation from her presence. Because think about it, have you ever wanted someone more after they stopped chasing you? At first, it confuses you. You expected them to keep reaching out, keep seeking your attention, keep proving how much they cared. But instead, they became calm, focused, centered, busy building their own life. And suddenly, their absence became louder than their attention ever was. That's the power of emotional self-sufficiency. Most men unknowingly push women away because they radiate neediness without realizing it. They overtext, overanalyze, overreact to silence. Their emotional state rises and falls depending on how much attention they receive, and women feel that pressure immediately. But when a man is emotionally grounded, something shifts. He stops trying to force connection. He stops performing for approval. He enjoys her presence without making her the center of his emotional stability. That energy is rare, and rare things naturally become valuable. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from within, not from controlling other people. The moment you stop building your identity around whether someone chooses you, you become infinitely more attractive. Because now your attention feels intentional instead of desperate. And women notice that. When you're always available, always chasing, always waiting for her next message, your presence loses emotional weight. But when you genuinely enjoy your own life, when your confidence exists independently of her validation, she starts feeling something unexpected. Curiosity. She begins wondering why you're different, why you don't react like everyone else, why your calmness feels so difficult to read. And that mystery creates emotional tension, not because you're playing games, but because emotional independence naturally creates intrigue, which leads into the second psychological shift most men underestimate: the power of absence. Because sometimes the strongest emotional impact you can make comes from the space you leave behind. Think about this carefully. When someone is constantly present, human nature adapts to it. Their attention becomes expected, predictable, easy to overlook. But absence changes perception. Suddenly, the energy that used to fill her day is gone. The conversations slow down, the routine changes, and in that silence, she finally feels the emotional weight of your presence. That's when memory becomes powerful. Not during constant contact, during contrast. This is why people often don't fully appreciate someone until there's distance. Space forces reflection. It gives emotions room to breathe. And when a woman has space to emotionally process your absence, she starts recognizing what your presence actually brought into her life. But this only works when the absence is real. Not fake manipulation, not calculated silence designed to trigger anxiety. Real absence comes from having your own purpose, your own routines, your own direction outside of the relationship. It comes from genuinely being invested in your own growth instead of constantly orbiting around someone else's attention. That balance changes everything, because now, when you step away, she doesn't feel ignored. She feels your absence, and there's a difference. Then something even more powerful begins happening. She starts emotionally associating you with peace, which brings us to the third psychological principle most men completely overlook: your ability to remain calm when everything around you becomes chaotic, because genuine calmness has become rare. Most people today are emotionally reactive. One stressful moment ruins their mood. One disagreement throws them off balance. One difficult situation exposes how unstable they really are underneath the surface. But the man who stays composed during pressure creates a completely different emotional experience around him. He becomes grounding, and in a world filled with emotional chaos, that kind of presence is unforgettable. Think about how most people respond when life becomes difficult. They panic, they overreact, They let emotions control their words and decisions. But when you remain centered, when you refuse to let external circumstances dominate your internal state, something shifts in the way she sees you. You stop feeling ordinary, because emotional steadiness communicates strength without needing to announce it. Stoicism teaches that true power is revealed under pressure. Anyone can appear confident when life is easy. But composure during uncertainty, that's what separates emotionally strong men from emotionally fragile ones. And women feel that difference immediately. A calm man creates emotional safety, not because he has all the answers, but because his energy says, no matter what happens, I won't collapse. That matters more than most men realize, especially in relationships. When she sees that you can handle conflict without exploding, stress without panicking, setbacks without losing yourself, she begins associating your presence with peace. You become the person she subconsciously turns toward when the world feels overwhelming. And once someone connects your presence with emotional stability, your absence becomes much harder to ignore. Which brings us to the next psychological principle, mystery. Now this is where many men make a huge mistake. They reveal everything too quickly. Every thought, every emotion, every insecurity, every detail of their life within days of meeting someone. And without realizing it, they remove all emotional tension from the connection, because attraction is often sustained by discovery. Think about the people who stayed in your mind the longest. Usually they weren't the ones who revealed everything immediately. There was something layered about them, something you couldn't fully figure out all at once. That uncertainty creates intrigue, and intrigue creates emotional investment. This doesn't mean pretending to be distant or secretive. It simply means understanding that not every part of you needs immediate access. A man who constantly over-explains himself often does it from a hidden fear of not being understood or accepted. But a grounded man is comfortable allowing people to discover him slowly. He doesn't rush intimacy. He doesn't force emotional closeness. He lets connection unfold naturally, and that patience creates curiosity. Imagine speaking with someone who shares just enough to pull you deeper into conversation, but not enough to fully satisfy your curiosity. You leave the interaction still wondering about them, still replaying certain moments in your mind. That emotional incompleteness is powerful, because the mind naturally returns to what feels unresolved. This is why mystery can make your presence linger long after the conversation ends. She starts wondering what else exists beneath the surface, what you're thinking when you go quiet, what experiences shape the way you carry yourself so calmly. And the more emotionally intriguing you become, the harder it is for her to emotionally detach from your presence. But none of this works if one destructive habit keeps leaking through your behavior. Neediness. This is where attraction quietly collapses for many men, because confidence and neediness cannot exist in the same energy for very long. A needy man constantly seeks reassurance. He needs immediate replies, constant attention, frequent validation, proof that he still matters. And the more he chases certainty, the more emotionally heavy his presence becomes. Women feel that pressure quickly, not because they don't care, but because desperation changes the emotional dynamic entirely. Instead of enjoying the connection, she begins feeling responsible for your emotional stability. That's exhausting. Confidence works differently. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't beg to be chosen. It doesn't panic during silence. It doesn't try to control outcomes through constant pursuit. A confident man understands his value even when nobody is reminding him of it. And that kind of self-respect becomes magnetic. When you genuinely enjoy your own life, when your happiness is not dependent on keeping someone attached to you, your energy changes. You become calmer, more present, less reactive. You stop trying to force connection and start allowing it to happen naturally. Ironically, that's usually when people start wanting you more, because the moment she realizes you are emotionally complete without needing her validation, she starts seeing you differently, not as someone chasing love, but as someone she could genuinely lose. And that realization changes everything, because the moment a woman feels that your entire emotional world depends on her attention, the connection begins carrying pressure instead of freedom. Every message feels loaded, every silence feels dangerous, every interaction starts revolving around reassurance instead of genuine connection. That's what neediness really is. Not love, not care, dependence. It's the quiet fear that without her validation, you lose your sense of worth. And once a man starts operating from that fear, he slowly abandons the very qualities that made him attractive in the first place. His calmness disappears, his purpose weakens, his emotional balance becomes fragile. And women can feel that shift almost instantly, but confidence creates the opposite effect. A confident man enjoys connection without clinging to it. He values love without making it his identity. He understands that another person can add meaning to his life, but they should never become the foundation holding him together. That's the difference between emotional strength and emotional dependency. Stoicism teaches that fulfillment begins internally. Your peace cannot rely on someone constantly choosing you, texting you, validating you, or reassuring you. Because the moment your happiness becomes dependent on another person's behavior, your emotional state stops belonging to you. And people can sense when a man has lost ownership over himself. But when you stand firmly in your own life, when your sense of purpose, discipline, and self-respect remain intact, regardless of who stays or leaves, something powerful happens. Your presence becomes calming instead of heavy. You stop trying to force people to miss you, and ironically, that's when they usually do, because now your energy feels different. There's no desperation underneath your kindness, no hidden panic beneath your attention, no silent begging beneath your affection. You're present because you choose to be, not because you're terrified of losing someone. And that emotional freedom is deeply attractive. The truth is, most people never forget how someone made them feel emotionally. Long after the conversations fade, long after the details disappear, they remember the feeling attached to your presence. Did you bring pressure or peace? Did your energy create anxiety or emotional stability? Did being around you feel draining or grounding? That's what lingers in someone's mind after you're gone. Not constant texting, not chasing, not trying too hard to be unforgettable. Real impact comes from emotional presence, from being the man who remains centered in a world full of chaos. The man who values connection without losing himself inside it. The man who can step away without bitterness because his identity was never built around being chosen by someone else. And when you truly reach that point, something unexpected happens. You stop obsessing over whether she misses you because you're too focused on becoming someone you genuinely respect. Ironically, that's usually when your absence starts carrying the most weight. Not because you manipulated anyone into wanting you, but because emotionally grounded people leave lasting impressions naturally. So if there's one thing to remember from all of this, let it be this. The people who are hardest to forget are rarely the loudest, the most desperate, or the ones constantly demanding attention. They're the ones who made others feel calm, safe, inspired, free. And sometimes the strongest way to stay in someone's mind is simply learning how to stop chasing a place in it.